I know everybody's up in arms talking about King's hair, but can we put that on hold for a second? Can we talk about how Elizabeth is holding Diane, that is, aka a giant, by one finger? Like, can we acknowledge that for a second? Like, look, I know the whole thing with the Sacred Treasure of Diane and everything. There's a lot of things going on with discussion with this chapter, but just, if there's one thing I know many are not properly looking at, it's the fact that Elizabeth was holding up freaking Diane. Like holy crap. Okay, so that speaks a lot of volumes on Elizabeth's strength. I mean, granted, at this point in time, someone like Diane, regardless of her being a giant, she can be knocked around by strong foes. I mean, Mel would throw her around like it's nothing. Meliodas would. Bond probably as well. King. But even then, though, just still, Elizabeth, of all people, just carrying Diane by a finger. And yes, they are slowly falling to the ground, but she's still holding her up. It's impressive. I mean, even though Elizabeth isn't really a physical fighter, like, that's what makes it so impressive, actually. She's not a physical fighter. She's always just been like that range type person, so crazy little detail with this chapter, I think, that is not properly getting acknowledged. But okay, let's talk about the elephant in the room, and that is King's new hairstyle. He has upgraded from the King of the Fairies to King of Rock.
Oi, senpai.
And I know I'm probably not the only one to make that joke today. So it's pretty funny seeing the man's new design, and I can't help but just think, like, I don't like the hair. Like, I really don't like the hair. I really hope, I really hope that's just like a temporary, like, design on his hairstyle, because, look, don't get me wrong, the pompadour type, comb over top hair and stuff, like, from, you know, what King has, works on some characters, like, you know, Josuke, or, you know, someone like, you know, Kuwabara from Yu Yu Hakusho. That type of hairstyle works, even Knuckles from, you know, Hunter x Hunter. But seeing King of all characters that's always had this short hair, like little boy type hair, I'm just like, yeah, that does not suit him whatsoever. I think slightly longer hair going downward might be a little bit better, but yeah, that's my personal feelings. I'm not the biggest fan of King's hair. Now, wings, I like. I love his wing designs. I believe his wing design is actually kind of like a moth's. Like, I could be wrong there, but it looks more like a moth than a butterfly, which I like that. I like that design. It kind of makes it to where he's not exactly similar to the previous Fairy King, like, because he had these beautiful, like, butterfly-looking wings. King has, like, a different set that looks very different, makes him very distinguished, and I hope that's not the reason why Nakama-sensei decided to give him that weird, you know, hairstyle. Hopefully it's not just because to make him different from the previous Fairy King, and just not have long hair. I truly hope that is not the case. Now, there is something about King's new character design, beside his hair, that I want to make sure everybody notices. He has gotten definitely a lot taller. Like, his facial structure to the way his body size is, it seems like he's matured. Like, he's gotten older or taller, because he has definitely longer legs. Because if you look throughout the chapter, or in previous, you know, scenes throughout the recent chapters, King's pants were not going up to his knees that high up like it was in this chapter when you see his transformation type look. So yeah, King has obviously grown somewhat. He's not the same size. He seems a little bit more matured, which I actually like that. I like his design a lot, but I really hope the hair changes very soon. Now, also, let's talk about Diane and her sacred treasure. Now, I know this is going to be a very negative portion for many when it comes to the chapter, and I could see why. I could truly see why many are probably focusing on the whole Diane thing and the sacred treasure, how it kind of came out of nowhere in terms of what its ability was. But at the same time, we gotta remember, we never knew what Diane's sacred treasure could do. We knew that sacred treasures have different abilities. We've seen this through Meliodas and how he has multiple clones that pop up with his sacred treasure. We know this. We know sacred treasures are capable of this. So it's not something that came out of nowhere. So you can't just downright say what happened with Diane in this chapter is a plot hole. However, it is convenient. Yes, not denying that. I I would refuse to deny how convenient it is for Diane to have a power that's perfect for Mel's attack to save the day within this chapter. I'm not saying it's not convenient, but it is not a plot hole by any means, because everything else has been previously set up, established for this reveal, because with other things we know about the sacred treasures. Here's the thing though. If we go on one step further in thinking about Diane's sacred treasure, she's really not had any opportunity to use her sacred treasure. Think about it. I mean, Diane really hasn't had, like, many colossal fights with these, like, enemies that have crazy magical power. I think the only one that she's really ever come in contact with, like, crazy magical power would be Chandler, which she didn't really get to fight much. And then also Dreyfus. So Dreyfus, I think, was like the only one she really kind of like encountered. So when you think about it, Diane really hasn't had many like large-scale magical fights that she could counter like with her sacred treasure to put it into the ground. But that's not also taking into consideration Diane's character, her personality. See, if you understand Diane as a character and how she is, then you'll understand why she never has used her sacred treasure in the first place. Regardless if she was in the proper position to ever use it, let's say a magical attack was strong enough, it still would go against her personality to use that willy-nilly like it's nothing. Because remember, Diane is somewhat like a pacifist. She doesn't like to hurt people. That was the entire point of her backstory, is that she was completely different from all the giants before her, that she didn't want to fight for the sake of fighting. She didn't care about that. She was kind, compassionate, she didn't want to hurt people. And that was one of the big reasons what she blamed herself for many years, thinking what happened to, you know, her sensei, you know, her teacher. And now seeing this reveal, it's like, it makes sense why she never used it, because she didn't want to hurt people, hurting life, anything. So that, I think, fits in line perfectly with her character. It doesn't go against anything that was established with Diane's character. In fact, it's reinforced because of her personality. Now, another thing I do want to mention is what Diane's description of the, you know, ability of the sacred treasure is. So apparently, the magic attack goes through the sacred treasure. The giant hammer goes into the ground and then explodes. So it's not negating the attack. It's legit just redirecting the attack to go into the ground, like legit a lightning rod, and blowing up inside the ground. So it's not stopping the damage. It's just redirecting it into other places, which is below the ground, which could cause a lot of problems. Think about it like this, okay? In today's society, in real life, if we go underground and start messing with things and having like gigantic explosions or something happening in caves or whatever, it could potentially cause like either some form of sinkhole, maybe earthquake, volcanic eruption, depending on the size of the explosion or something. I mean, when you think about it, what is going on with this ability and why Diane didn't want to use it, it makes perfect sense. I think in turn of way the Nakaba Sensei like introduced this, fits in line with everything, and it makes sense why Diane wanted to use it, because it would just be very destructive and destroy a lot of things in the given area, and so that's why she only used it in the flying island, this floating island in this chapter for the first time. But I do agree with Hawk though, very convenient, and it does show that Nakaba Sensei at the very least is very self-aware. He is aware of how convenient that is for, you know, Diane to have that ability. So that makes me appreciate that Nakaba Sensei isn't just, you know, pulling it out of nowhere. He does admit it's convenient, but also it has been properly established to fit in line. Now, getting off of that, let's talk about Mel for a second, because I've been noticing in the recent chapter reviews I have done and on Twitter, I notice people are not really liking these recent chapters, and I can kind of understand the reason why, and I want to tackle that issue. Get, you know, that bigger elephant out of the room. Many are talking about how this recent fight, this entire Mel fight, feels very dragged out. Like, it needs to end. And I understand why many are saying that. The reason why is because we have been having this entire Mel fight for like 15, 20 plus chapters now. It's been a bit, and I've loved the backstory, the setup with Galther and all of that with Mel. It's been very cool. I've loved it. I think many can agree it's been a great part to the story. But at the same time, it's very obvious that the fight, at the very least with Mel right now, is being dragged out until Meliodas, Bon, and all of them arrive, or even Escanor arrive. It's being dragged out, the fight is. And all of what we're seeing right now is just like a precursor to the true main battle. And don't get me wrong, I love action as the next, battle shonen type dude. But I do also know that it's very understandable when things are just filler. Just being there, or just chapters are in there for the time being, just to be there until the main group pops up to, save the day. It's kind of like Goku in Dragon Ball, to where all the other characters get their shot at the bad guy, and when they get destroyed, they're, put to the ground, they job against the bad guy just to build up the final battle. And that's pretty much what's happening here, is that all our characters are going to job against Mel just to build up his fighting strength for the upcoming battle, either it be Escanor, Bon, or Meliodas. Regardless, all of these fights are just set up for that alone. And let's be real here. King may be incredibly strong. He may be one of the strongest fairy kings ever seen in history. But even then, I don't believe he is someone that can compete with someone like Mel at this time. And even if, even in hindsight, let's just say that, King is as strong as Mel, there most likely will be a limitation that will be added to King. And the limitation would be, most likely, is that King can't use his power for a long period of time at the moment. Since it's a rather new form, there has to be limitations. It's kind of like what you would see in a transformation, or any type of transformation, any shonen, that when a character gets a new power, they only have a limited amount of time they most likely can use it, until they train it, they get better with it, and then they can use it anytime they want. It's kind of like how Super Saiyan was in Dragon Ball Z. When it first appeared, you could only use a limited amount of time. It massively drained your energy down, and they had to train to be able to utilize it, and then, it continued onward after that. Basically, I feel like King's power, it might be able to compete with Mel. Either it's going to have a massive, drain on his stamina, his endurance, or it's going to have limitations to where it's going to just run down very quickly, and he's just going to have to stop. One or the other. There's bound to be some limits to King, even if he is the same level as Mel. But, like I said, I do believe that Mel is going to beat King in the end. It's all set up for Bon's return and Meliodas's. So, yeah, the main point is that many are thinking that this fight is very tedious, and in a lot of ways is useless. I mean, it's good to see these characters getting some character development, characterization, seeing new techniques we haven't seen, which I like, but I do agree that it is getting a little bit dragged out. Like, we need to get to the true serious stuff going on, which this King stuff is serious stuff. It's been building up for a long time, but I understand where everybody's coming from with that. It does feel dragged out, and I do hope that Nakaba Sensei isn't just dragging out just to have King job, just to be able to build up Bon and Meliodas. I just hope that's really not what's going on. But he is self-aware at the very least of his writing, and, the convenient nature of some abilities that are introduced, so that does make me respect him as a writer quite a bit. But that's pretty much about it when it comes to this chapter of, Taizai. Did you enjoy this chapter? Did you hate this chapter? Be honest in the comments below. I'm very curious to see how you guys feel. How do you feel about the fight in general with Mel? Do you think it's dragged out? Do you think it's not? Do you agree with how, the explanation to Diane's sacred treasure was? Do you think it was just very convenient? Do you think it was a plot hole? Be honest in the comments below. I want to hear you guys' thoughts. And with that, I love you guys. Please be safe. If you enjoy my content, please subscribe. If you like this video, please leave a like. And if you want to get notified for whenever I upload a video, please click the bell icon down below. And with that, Chibi out.